Hello and welcome to this very special edition of the Sofa Sports News podcast, brought to you by the FNX Network, Delta Plumbing Services and Greek Beat Radio. Tonight is an Arsenal special and I have the pleasure of being joined by somewhat celebrity Arsenal fan, Arsenal Moh. How you doing?
Not at all, not at all. But we'll come on to that probably when we start chatting.
Yeah, no doubt about that. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, not too bad, man. And looking forward to having this little chat as well. How you doing?
Yeah, not too bad, not too bad. Looking forward to talking with a fellow Arsenal fan like yourself.
Exactly.
Plenty of juicy issues to discuss, of course.
As always.
So, Mo, I want to start off by asking you the big question. Arsene Wenger in or Arsene Wenger out?
All depends on who replaces him. So if it's Allegri, then yeah, I'm Arsene Wenger out. And if it's David Moyes, then I'm Arsene Wenger in. And, you know, I feel as though, like, for years, people have been having that Wenger in or Wenger out conversation. Now, you know, the way I see it, I just don't think you can have that conversation. It's because it's hard. It's only half the story, isn't it? You've got to know what comes next. You know, I think it'd be really reckless. You know, you imagine for a second if a fan, any fan, for example, was actually in charge of making that decision. I think it'd be incredibly reckless to just say, right, fine, Wenger out. You know, the way people do without a care in the world, as if it's like a very insignificant decision. I think that's reckless because there's, you know, for all of his flaws, he's not as bad as we make out. You know, there aren't many managers out there in the world that are absolutely, definitely better than him. I'd say, yeah, there are definitely a few that I'd say 100% I'd expect to be better than him. And, you know, I'd say about 5 years ago, I was of the opinion that no matter who you replace him with, or actually maybe a bit more than 5 years ago, but let's say 8 years ago, I was of the opinion that whoever you replace him with, they bring risk. But now I'd say if you get Allegri, I would fully expect Allegri to do a better job than Arsene Wenger. And I don't like saying that. It's just, you know, how I feel. Likewise, with someone like Diego Simeone, I fully expect that he would turn Arsenal around and improve them beyond what Arsene Wenger would be able to do. But Arsene Wenger is not in, you know, this club of dumb managers that don't know what they're doing. He's still an elite manager, just not in the upper echelons as like he used to be. So it's a very hard decision to get rid of him. And you can only do that when the timing's right, when the right man's available. So that's why you don't see me on Arsenal Fan TV screaming, Wenger out, Wenger out. If Allegri knocked on my door tomorrow and said, oh, by the way, I'm available today, then I would be doing that because I'd know that the replacement, the potential replacement is, you know, a real step up. But I don't know, people are a bit too emotional when it comes to the issue.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm the first to hold my hands up and say there's been times, in particular during the last 2 or 3 seasons, where I've lost my rag and I've called for him to be sacked. But the fact is this, Arsene Wenger is Arsenal's greatest ever manager. Yeah. And like you said, there are not too many that can do a better job than him. And that's where the issue lies for me. You know, I do feel that Arsenal need a change that's been coming for a few years now. But I'll tell you a little story. At the FA Cup final, we just won the FA Cup. The game had literally finished. And I looked down on the pitch and Arsene Wenger was talking to a member of the press. And a friend of mine, one of the other guys that jumps onto Sofa Sports News actually, sent me a text and he said, Wenger's just resigned live on TV. And obviously being in the stands, I didn't know. And I couldn't get signal to check or anything like that. And my heart actually sank. And I realized that, you know what, I'm going to be sad when this guy goes. And maybe I should lay off a little bit in the criticism. Yeah. But
you know, it's actually a really good point. And you know, the thing is with the majority of football fans that you speak to, they don't really want to, you know, it's not fun to have like a sensible conversation. It's just more, rants are more fun. You know, that's what people enjoy watching or whatever. So, you know, I guess, yeah, I'm talking about Arsenal Fan TV here because, you know, you're not trying to be entertaining when you talk to your mates or the conversation we're having now. You know, even though there might be people listening to it or whatever when they tune in, but we're not doing it to attract views. We're having an honest conversation. And I really do think that, you know, when I am a 60-year-old man going to the Arsenal and I tell my son or I tell my grandson about the club or whatever, and they talk about who the greatest manager is and that sort of thing. If I have to talk to someone in like 30 years' time, 50 years' time, whatever it might be, about Arsene Wenger and tell them the story of his time at our club and what he did for us, how he revolutionized everything, how he went through a season unbeaten, how unlucky we were against Barcelona in the Champions League final, still the closest we've ever come to winning that trophy that we've never won. You know, he was the man that really was capable of it, and the players that he brought, the style of play, the way he revolutionized the English game. You're going to have to tell them all of that stuff. And then when you get to the final years of his stay at Arsenal, then you're going to have to say, oh, and then the fan base were doing things like wishing death on him. They were calling him a fraud. They were calling him, this. They were saying he's only in it for the money. They were, and when you have to, I don't even want to repeat these things, but when you would then go and tell this person 50 years on about Arsenal's greatest ever manager, it'd be a bit embarrassing. I think that's a really, really sad end to his time. And I really detest it. I think it's not fitting of the man. It's not fitting of what he's done for our club. But, fans are fans. I guess people don't think about it that deeply.
Yeah, I mean, emotions get in the way, don't they, unfortunately? And I feel like Arsenal fans' presence on social media does contribute to this a lot. I think, like you said, Arsenal Fan TV has been huge. And I'm going to hold my hands up now. And I know you've had many appearances on Arsenal Fan TV. I'm quite a big critic of Arsenal Fan TV. And the reason for that is I feel that, don't get me wrong, Robbie's done a fantastic job and we all watch it.
Yeah.
He's done a fantastic job. There's no doubt about it. I know fans of other clubs that watch it. But my only criticism of it would be, if I'm being totally honest, that I'd like to see more fans on there. I'd like to see some different opinions. Sometimes I feel like we're watching the same opinions. And like you said, I feel like there are certain people on there that are there to entertain rather than be honest. And so for me, I've begun to lose a bit of interest in it on that basis.
And you know what? I really don't. It's not my channel, but it's Robbie and Tao's channel. Even if you would say that to them, they are fully aware that nothing is above criticism, and Arsenal Fan TV deserves some criticism, also deserves some praise. But yeah, it is a very large contributing factor to what we see in kind of like the social media Arsenal Twitter sort of sphere. And it's not necessarily always a great influence. And the one thing I would say is that you mentioned that you'd like to see more fans on there, and a lot of people say that. And I haven't done the study, so I can't give you statistics. But if you were to look, if you're ever bored, if you've got time on your hands, if you were to go through, just take 10 sample fixtures from last season and look at all of the interviews that were done on each game, I think you would be surprised with how many people are on there that you don't recognize. But like anything, there's definitely the regulars. So there's like maybe about 8 of us or whatever that will always get on. But then there will be another 8 that people just don't bother watching because people want to watch the regulars and they look out for the regulars. So it's almost like Arsenal Fan TV does do that. They never turn anyone down. It's not unless they're out of memory or time is an issue or whatever. But they never say to someone, "Oh no, no one knows who you are, so go away," sort of thing. It's not like that at all. I'm sure if you said to yourself, "All right, I want to get on," and you took the effort to really, get there on time and all that sort of stuff before the crowd forms and say, "Look, can I do an interview?" The answer is never going to be no. But people, I don't think they give Arsenal Fan TV objective credit when they say that. But if you were to do the study, and maybe one day if I'm really bored, I'll do the study and whatever. But they do give people a chance. But I do accept that Arsenal Fan TV has definitely got its criticisms. But for me personally, the thing that I find frustrating is that I'm no angel. I swear in real life, But on Arsenal Fan TV, I take the conscious effort not to swear. Ultimately, I don't want my kids, when I have them, to watch it back and see their dad setting a bad example. That's kind of one of my reasons for not swearing. I don't want my parents or my nieces and nephews to ever go on Arsenal Fan TV and watch my interviews and see me swearing or saying things that they think, bloody hell, who are you, sort of thing. My parents raised me in a particular way. I want my nieces and nephews to be raised in a particular way. So I try and come across in a way that I think is acceptable. I'm very, very different to other people on there who maybe aren't burdened with these things that I'm talking about. Yet when people talk about Arsenal Fan TV, they talk about it as if we're all one and the same. They kind of tar it with this brush that, oh, Arsenal Fan TV lot are like this. Well, I'm actually incredibly different to many other people on there, you know, and that's kind of I feel like I definitely deserve some criticism, and, you know, I'm not perfect in any way and I annoy people, whatever. But it annoys when I get tarred with the same brush, because I'm not one that's ever given Arsene Wenger abuse or anything like that, or, you know, and people talk about Arsenal Fan TV being poisonous. I don't think I've brought poison to the club through Arsenal Fan TV. You know, you might not agree with my opinions or whatever, but I don't think I've made it toxic or anything. But, you know, hey-ho.
No, and like I said at the start, I'm all for fans giving their opinions. That's why I do this, and that's why we started this show in the first place. It's just, it feels to me, yeah, and I take your point on board. You know, maybe we are seeing the same videos over and over again because those people are the popular ones. Those people have a following, and that's why we see those videos over and over again. Moving on from Arsenal Fan TV, Mo, where do you think it went wrong last season and the season before and the season before that? What do you think is holding Arsenal back from challenging for a Premier League title?
Well, where it went wrong was that run of games. You know, honestly, my brain works in a funny way. I honestly feel as though I've blanked that period of the season out. I don't remember it very well, and I really struggle to ever watch replays or even look at the results or anything when it's really, really bad. So I just don't retain that the bad times. Maybe it helps being an Arsenal fan, but you know, I just remember there was a run of games that obviously included the 3-0 against Palace that was shockingly bad. That's really where it went wrong for us. But, you know, the underlying issue and why that happened, I just feel as though mentally there is a real weakness to our club. And, you know, I just wonder, I mean, obviously what Leicester did was a one-in-a-lifetime achievement, but they obviously had a group of players and they were able to create some sort of spirit and steelness mentally within that group of players that meant that they could hang on and keep doing what they were doing. And, you know, if we got that same group of players that Leicester won the league with and put them in Arsenal's environment and said you're going to have 100 years to try and emulate what you did at Leicester, I don't think they'd be able to. Even with better facilities, you know, you'd hope better coaches, a better training ground, a bigger stadium, more fans, you know, all of that stuff, all the other benefits. And, you know, Arsene Wenger, who we would hope is a, you know, superior manager to Ranieri, even with all of those things, I just don't think mentally we're where we need to be real title winners, because it's tough. It really is tough. So, yeah, I don't know how you fix that.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I think something I've said on shows in the past and articles that I've written, I've always said that Arsenal seem to have a bit of a blame culture in and around the club, and whether that transmits to the playing staff, there's an argument that it does. And when you look around the club, I mean, I'll give you a prime example. Last season, obviously, I went to all of the home fixtures, and you know how many times I heard Arsenal fans criticising Arsene Wenger, and Arsene Wenger's the reason that we're failing, and so on and so forth. The minute Arsenal season sort of came to an end in the Premier League campaign anyway, and we weren't going to make the top four, or it was really difficult to do so, and then Alisher Usmanov made that supposed bid for a controlling stake, all of a sudden the blame shifted. It was as if on that last game of the season, it was as if Arsene Wenger didn't deserve any criticism, and it all shifted over to Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke, it's obvious he's been at the club for a while. He wants to make money, and that's what he's there for. Yeah. What are your opinions of him?
Well, you know, the thing is with Stan Kroenke, right? I think I vehemently want him out of the club, but not for necessarily the same reasons as what most fans think or what most fans have as their reasons for him. He's actually not the worst owner in the world. Like, you know, if you were actually grading him out of 10, he doesn't put the club in any financial jeopardy. He allows us to spend. He doesn't withdraw money from the club. He has done in the past, but there's actually more to that than what people maybe realize. So he's not the worst owner, you know. You get much worse in terms of look what's happened to Rangers and Leeds and Mike Ashley at Newcastle and, you know, Sunderland, for example. These aren't stable clubs, and the ownership is a big part of that. So Stan Kroenke is not all bad, but that's talking about him not being bad. He's also not good in terms of the structure at the club, the the lines of authority, how well the club is run. That for me, the innovation that comes out of the club and the ambition, the culture that is set within the club, he doesn't do any of that. So for me, he's a very sort of like passive owner. It's almost though if he dropped dead tomorrow, and you know, in fact, I don't want anyone to think I'm suggesting I want that to happen. I won't use those words. But if he went on a permanent holiday to a desert island, for example, nothing would change. He doesn't do anything. And that's why I want him out of the club, because I feel as though it's almost this like apathy that he has for Arsenal, which sounds crazy because it's probably around 20% of his net worth, the value of Arsenal. So he should be extremely bothered about that. But I feel as though he's taken over the club and he's riding the wave of ridiculous football inflation. And that is basically giving him a massive unrealized gain. You know, he's getting richer and richer. You look at the value of the club, it's increased hugely since he took over. I think he paid around 400 million in combined for his shares. And, you know, he could sell at $1 billion profit now. I mean, that's an amazing return in the short time that he's been around. So, yeah, you know, he's not putting the club in financial jeopardy, but he just doesn't do anything for the club. It's this very passive culture that he sets where we're not desperate for success or desperate for trophies. And as a result of that, as I said, the lines of communication, the hierarchy within the club aren't what they should be. It doesn't actually help the club, you know, make changes. We're kind of at the mercy, and another frustration I have with Arsene Wenger, I guess, we're kind of at the mercy of the way Arsene Wenger wants to do things. There's not that effective level of challenge in the club. That's what I find really frustrating. So that's why I want him out. Not because I feel as though he's a bad owner. I just feel as though he doesn't actually do anything. We need someone more actively involved in the club. I don't want an owner to start telling the manager what to do and who to sign, but one that sets an environment that's a bit more cutthroat. The way I see things, you know, is that someone like, two examples, Pep Guardiola at Barcelona and Zinedine Zidane at Real Madrid. Both of those were ex-players with no previous managerial experience that came to the very top jobs in world football and have delivered phenomenal success for their teams. Now, is that because they are unbelievably good managers, potentially? Or is it because they're in an environment where it's either a case of get to that level or you're not going to last? You almost have no choice. There is no sort of second place is okay culture in these clubs. You know what you've got to do, and if you don't do it, you're not going to last. The fact that they've lasted, by default, they're going to be successful. Otherwise, they wouldn't have lasted. They're, you know, one and the same at Real Madrid and Barcelona. Now, I just wonder if Arsenal had said to Guardiola, we're going to give you your shot, and it wasn't Barcelona. Or if Arsenal had said to Zinedine Zidane, we're going to give you your shot in your first gig in management, would they have achieved at Arsenal anywhere close, anything close to what they achieved at Real Madrid or Barcelona? I don't think so. I don't think so at all. I think they would have, you know, been very, very average at our club. And I think that's as a result of the environment in which they would have been working in. And forget Pep or Zidane. If we had given it to Dennis Bergkamp, for example, you know, and said, right, fine, you know, you can be a manager here, would he have been able to emulate them? I don't think so, because Arsenal's environment just doesn't seem to generate that level of performance. I mean, other things as well. You look at someone like Gareth Bale. He went to Real Madrid. His whole physique has changed. They clearly have a way of doing things there that I think is a bit more intense, a bit more geared towards winning, a bit more geared towards being the best. I don't think if Gareth Bale had come to Arsenal, he'd have the same build as he does now. You know, there's so many players at our club that are just very slight. Like you take Theo Walcott, for example. If Real Madrid or Barcelona signed Theo Walcott tomorrow, I don't think they'd let him, you know, continue the way he is. I think there'd be a bit more active management and active change in shaping that player's fortunes. And so these are just slight examples that I just pull out and say that, you know, Arsenal's got a culture that is not optimized for success, and I think that's as a direct result of, you know, the upper echelons of the people who are in charge of our club.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you've just said there. I do feel like the lack of pressure from above does lead to, you know, to failure a lot of the time, and we've seen it over the years. You know, Wenger seems to be untouchable, and ultimately that's down to the owners and the board. Mo, a lot has been said this week about Stan Kroenke, in particular the announcement that this TV channel that supports trophy hunting is going to be released here in the UK. Now, I was listening to TalkSport yesterday, and Arsenal fans were phoning up saying, you know, this is a disgrace, and rightly so. However, there was a suggestion that us fans should boycott our club because of this channel.
Yeah.
Now, what do you think about that? I think that's a bit of a, I think that's a bit excessive, to be honest.
Look, I am an animal lover. Yeah, this is my cat. But and I'm disgusted by it. I really am disgusted by it. But unfortunately, what I see going on now with this whole issue is a bit of opportunism with Arsenal fans.
Yeah.
It's almost as though, oh, you know, this is disgusting. We're morally against this, so we're going to use this as a reason to suggest that he shouldn't be the owner of our club. This issue should have nothing to do with Stan Kroenke being an owner of our club, because you should be emotive about this issue if you care about animals, not if you care about Arsenal. You know, you can care about Arsenal all day of every year sort of thing. This issue is not about Arsenal. It's actually about the protection of animals and not trying to glorify such a disgusting hobby. So when Arsenal fans are kind of saying that, oh, he shouldn't be the owner because of this, that's equally as kind of silly to me as when people are saying you should boycott your club because of this. Well, actually, what we should be doing is speaking out against him, which a lot of us are doing, and, you know, protesting, but not at his ownership. It should be at the fact that he's bringing this channel onto our TV screens. And that's why this isn't just an Arsenal issue. You know, it's not just Arsenal fans that have to care about animals. It should be everyone. Everyone should really be saying that, no, this is unacceptable for someone to be trying to do in the UK, whether he's involved in football or cricket or no sports at all. It's just not what we want to see. The fact that he's Arsenal majority shareholder makes it have a lot more scrutiny. And obviously, as Arsenal fans, we are kind of a bit more annoyed by it, a bit more stung by it, because it drags our club through the dirt. You know, we, on one hand, will take a lot of pride in the work that the Arsenal Foundation do, for example. And, you know, we look at that and kind of say, like, yeah, we do great work as a club. So naturally, when it's the other way around and something's associated to the club that's really negative, it's going to affect us a little bit more. But there's not a reason to not turn up and support the players that have had nothing to do with this decision by the owner. So to boycott your own club, to me, seems kind of, there's no link there. It just seems a bit of a strange thing to do. But I do definitely think we should be speaking out. And you know, someone suggested, for example, that everyone takes a cuddly toy of like a tiger or a lion or whatever and throws it onto the pitch. And I'd love that. I think that would be so telling if 60,000 elephants rained down onto the pitch or whatever. I think that'd be brilliant. But, you know, it's not going to happen, and, you know, we shouldn't be advocating that, because it's, you know, I'm sure the club wouldn't appreciate it. But I'd love a banner out there. I'd love something out there to say that, you know, well, Arsenal's name is in every single article when people are talking about this, just because he's the majority owner, but we're going to speak out against it. I tweeted the Arsenal Foundation the other day, and I said that I'd love it if they actually did something where they set up an additional project to help endangered animals, to counteract what the owner's doing. Because, no, I haven't actually seen the quote, but apparently Arsenal said we've got no comment. Well, I think you should have a comment. I don't think it's 2017. I don't think there's any sort of grey area here. We should not be killing endangered animals for a laugh, you know, as a hobby. It's not a controversial opinion to have. It's pretty black and white. So I think the club should come out and say Arsenal as a club does not support the views of its owner, or whatever the statement needs to be. So boycott, no, but protest, yes. Speak out against it, yes. And petition, all that sort of stuff, yes. But ultimately, there is nothing we can do. He's not doing anything illegal. He owns the club.
That's right.
But, you know, we should still speak out against it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. Mo, this summer's been a bit of a better one in terms of transfer business. We finally got Alexander Lacazette on the books, and we signed Sead Kolasinac on a free transfer, who looks a unit from what I've seen in pre-season.
Yeah.
Do you still think we need recruits, and who would you like to see
100%.
come in?
100%. You know, Lacazette, I'm very, very happy with. I've been asking for him for years, and I really think that he's a risk. Don't get me wrong, but I feel like he's a sort of risk that if it goes right, we could be talking about him as one of the best strikers in Europe. And that's why I wanted Arsenal to take that risk on him. So we've done that, and I'm glad. But ultimately, look, Community Shield is, what, a few days away, and the start of the season is next weekend. I really, really am getting to that point where I'm frustrated that we haven't done our business early. Great, we've got Lacazette in, but that should be the norm, not the exception. If we go and get 2 or 3 more players now, you know, that's too late as far as I'm concerned. And I'm worried that it's going to be the same old thing. We start the first game of the season unprepared. I think I read today that we've had 6 home games as our opening fixture of the Premier League in the last 6 years, and we've only won 1 of them. And, you know, last year was a perfect example. We lost a game against Liverpool at home because we didn't have a decent defence out, and we got pipped to the 4th place Champions League spot by, what was it, 1 or 2 points by that very team. Well, that comes back to right to the first game of the season. So again, these frustrations are coming to the fore where I want to get that business done early. And for me, it's that midfield area where I really think we need enforcement, because if you look at the performance of our midfielders last year, how many of them really contributed in terms of double-digit goals or double-digit assists? I don't think it was very good. Towards the end, Ramsey and Xhaka started to develop, you know, a bit of a partnership, and it started to look good. But I personally think that I'd like to add someone, you know, of a better quality in there. It's like, you know, Seri, Goretzka, someone like that I'd like to see. And also with Lamar, if that's going to happen, let's get it happening. I don't understand what the delay is. I personally do think he'll come to the club, but I don't want him to come after the first game of the season. I don't want him to come after the Community Shield. Let's get him in early.
Yeah. I agree. It looks as if this deal is going to happen, it's going to go right down to the wire. And knowing our club, it's probably over a couple of million here and there.
Monaco sold everyone else. So what have they done that we haven't? I hope it's not what you say.
Well, you know, when Arsenal keep announcing outstanding profits every year, you're going to try and milk as much out of the club as you possibly can. The power is with the seller now. Yeah, I mean, look, we're hearing today about Neymar joining Paris Saint-Germain for something close to £200 million.
Crazy, isn't it?
The game's gone nuts. So Monaco, well, you know, Gylfi Sigurdsson's being talked about going for around about £50 million. So if that's the case, Monaco have the right to demand that sort of money for a prospect like Lamar. So, you know, I think.
Well, what do you think? Like, who do you want to see come in, or what positions do you want to see strengthen and stuff?
I'd like to see us bring in another central midfield player, and the reason I say that is like you said, I do like the partnership between Xhaka and Ramsey. My fear is that Aaron Ramsey won't stay fit for the full season. He never seems to do so. It's as if he's got dodgy hamstrings. He's always having issues with that. So I'd like to see another central midfielder come in. I don't think Francis Coquelin is up to the job. I don't think Mohamed El Neni is up to the task of playing regularly. I think he's a good squad player, but that's about it. If I could only sign one more player, that's what I'd want, a centre midfielder, I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
people have spoken about Lamar going in centre mid. I feel as though that doesn't really play to his strengths, but, you know, I don't know. I want to get Lamar in, obviously, but I also feel as though I want kind of someone dynamic like a Seri Goretzka sort of thing in midfield. But I also feel like we need to get a Santi replacement as well. And we can't rely on Santi. I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't play a game next year. You know, he seems to be getting the Diabys or the Wilsheres about him now. And I'd love to get in a proper replacement. I just wonder, will there be any opportunity now with this Neymar deal going through? Because I don't have any idea whether PSG are going to be able to be compliant with financial fair play after signing Neymar. But surely it's going to be one hell of a task because the size of the fee is crazy. So I just wonder whether there'll be anyone that will be available as a result of that. And I'd like Arsenal to be in a position to strike if so.
Yeah, I think with financial fair play, it's something that has not yet been enforced completely as it should have been, as it was set out to be done. So I'm a bit skeptical about financial fair play still. Mo, looking forward to next season and assuming that we don't sign anyone else and this is our squad, what do you see Arsenal doing next season? And what should Arsenal be aiming for? Is our primary aim now to get back in the top four, or can we
No,
push for more?
not for a club like Arsenal. Never. Fourth is never an aim. I mean, if you're aiming for fourth, I would not pay a season ticket price and spend all my weekends and all that money and effort and time to try and get fourth. That is just beyond my comprehension. For me, I go every single game hoping to win the title, and I know as unrealistic as that is, that has got to be our aim. I don't think we will win the league next year, obviously. There's definitely stronger teams than us in the Premier League, but that's absolutely got to be our aim. And that aim needs to be reflected not only in performances and results, but also in our activity in the transfer window. And right now, I don't see us acting as though we're aiming to win the league. But realistically, I think in terms of what we're going to achieve next year, it will be, third or fourth is sort of kind of realistic as a minimum. Anything less than fourth because of the Champions League impact is just completely unacceptable. But I think Chelsea are stronger than us. I think Man City are going to be stronger than us. With Man United, it'll be touch and go because they've still got a lot of money that they're going to spend, in my opinion. With Tottenham, I hate to say it, but yeah, they're better than us. They proved that last year. So we're kind of probably around the fourth or fifth best team in the league, the way I see it. So we've got to make sure that we make sure we get into the top four, but still, as we mentioned Leicester earlier, we've still got to just try and make sure we can get that level of consistency to win the league.
Yep, totally.
Where do you think we'll finish?
If I'm honest, I think we'll make the top four. I don't want it to be our aim, but I feel like that is the club's aim from within. I feel that that's
I agree. Yeah.
I feel like that's what Wenger will be looking at. That's what the board will be looking at. And the board, I say, because of obviously the financial benefits of being in the Champions League. So I expect us to challenge for the top four again. I think we can make the top four. I feel like Spurs will have a tougher season than they've had over the last couple of years.
100%.
With the move to Wembley and that stuff going on. Their lack of activity in the transfer market is, in my opinion, is partly down to the money they've had to outlay on the stadium. Yeah. Despite what they say, despite we've had numerous Tottenham fans on the show saying, the money's already put to one side for the stadium and that's got nothing to do with our transfer budget. Well, having lived through Arsenal's stadium move, I know for a fact that is not the case. And so I expect them to struggle. Chelsea, I expect them to be right up there again. Man City, like you said, they've spent extortionate amounts of money on fullbacks even. So, you've got to think they're going to do well. The only thing I disagree with you on slightly, when you said it was touch and go with Man United, I actually think Man United will challenge for the title next year. I think he's building something there. I said at the end of the season that he needed a spine. And he's gone and got a centre half. He's now gone and got a central midfielder, and he's got a striker. So I feel like United will be up there next season. And so sneaking into the top four, whether that's ahead of Spurs, Liverpool, who knows? But that's what I can see us achieving.
Yeah, and Liverpool's another one. They've added Salah to their ranks as well, and they haven't finished their spending either. It's going to be very, very tough. And this is even without talking about Everton, who are a bit of an unknown entity for me next year because, they've spent a lot of money, and it's going to be hard to see how they line up. But I'd hope that we finish above Everton, for God's sake. I'm hoping that's not going to be an issue. They've lost Lukaku and replaced him with washed-up Rooney, for God's sake. So. But we'll see. I just think it's going to be very difficult next year. But we're just got to wait and see. Unfortunately, I'm not looking forward to the season. We haven't made the sort of additions where I think to myself, yes, we're really going to be knocking on the door to win the league. But we'll see what happens.
Yeah, exactly. That's all we can do. That's all we can do. Will you be going to the Community Shield final this weekend?
Yeah, yeah, I will be. And you know, as much as people try and claim it's a trophy when they win it, that's not going to be me. It's not a trophy at all. It's just, you know, it is what it is. It's the Community Shield. The best thing to come out of that game will be the fact that a whole lot of money will be raised for the Grenfell Tower victims. So yeah, you know, it's a nice day out. It's Wembley. That's all it is. I'm much more concerned about the Leicester game.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I spent half of a show at the back end of last season criticizing Jose Mourinho for counting it as a trophy. So I won't be doing that anytime soon.
That really is absolutely pathetic. And the thing is, you know, when you do this sort of thing, when you're recorded and you're speaking about stuff, you've got to be honest, because if you're not, you know, 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, it will come back to bite you. And Mourinho was banging on about the Europa League years ago, saying it was an embarrassment or whatever to be in that competition and that sort of thing. And then what happens is winning the Europa League, trying to give it the big one, claiming that it's a big trophy. And in that celebration, this was frightfully embarrassing, but they were holding up 3 fingers. I don't know if you've ever seen the video, but Mourinho told his players and staff to hold up 3 fingers to trophies that they had won. And Community Shield being one of them, like, come on, don't make me laugh. It's just absolutely pathetic. You know, but I'm glad we're both honest enough to kind of say, yes, it's not a trophy. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, of course. There's no doubt about that. I mean, Mo, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and thank you so much. And hopefully we can talk to you again during the season.
Yeah, for sure.
Lovely, lovely. Guys, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Our YouTube channel is fairly new. Our podcast is available on iTunes, SoundCloud, all the usual places, and of course, the FNX network. I want to say a big shout out to the Shoot the Defense show, hosted by Estelle, a partner show of ours, and we do some really interesting things together. Mo, tell us how people can follow you on Twitter and a bit about your YouTube channel.
So yeah, on Twitter it's Arsenal Moh8. So that's Arsenal MOH8. You can follow me there. And I've got a YouTube channel. I don't do too much on it, but every now and then when a major issue comes up, I'll take the time out and I'll give my little thoughts on that and stuff. So again, that's on YouTube, Arsenal Moh8. And usually what I do is I get a shisha going and I sit there for a while and I talk and I edit it. So I call it Shisha and Chill. And you can get my thoughts on an issue and stuff as well. But Harry, it's been a pleasure talking to you today. Have enjoyed it. I'll definitely come back on. Hopefully we can look back on this at the end of the season and talk about how we underestimated our club and we've gone and achieved something brilliant. But time will tell, I guess.
Hopefully that is the case. Mo, thank you once again. And that's all for this show, guys.